nenge wathi naku. Wathi woke we muito naku. Hey.
Happy New Year, everyone. I know it's February, but you know what? I haven't seen you in a while, so it's definitely still a new year. Welcome to Conversations with Kalekye, where love finds a voice. We are Africa's best relationship podcast, and we are excited to be back. We've got so many things to share. I truly have missed you. And I know you're wondering, okay, you've come back and then you're by yourself. What's the plan? I was not supposed to be alone. My producer, Winnie Adisa, was supposed to be here, but she decided the allure of sleep is more important than waking up to be here. Winnie, if you're listening, you owe me. Big time. I'm doing the show alone. What is this? Anyway, as always, that doesn't stop us from having this show. I really want to just bring it home to what last year was like before we set the pace for what this year is really going to be about. We've had an amazing first season talking about love stories, and some of those were amazing moments that we will be highlighting today, talking to so many amazing men and women who came through here with their stories. They were vulnerable. And I think I set the pace by being vulnerable myself first with my love story. So if you haven't caught up with any of those episodes, please go and check them out on YouTube, on Spotify, Conversations with Kalekye. You will find them there. The first episode that I would like to take a look at is Life and Lessons After Divorce. That was episode 5. On that episode, we got to sit with the amazing Dr. Zippy Okoth, and she really shared some very intense lessons and how she's living life after going through not one, but 2 breakups. The first one was an official divorce because she was officially married. The second one was a breakup, but having lived together with this other man for a while. And if you haven't checked it out, here's something just to give you a highlight of who she is and how strong she is. I feel like there's been a bit of that view that, from a world view, from an African view, that women who are divorced, women who didn't succeed in their marriages, there's, a way that they are sidelined in some areas.
Yeah.
For you, have you felt the exclusion? To what do you wish we would, do better? Because women on women, we have a tendency to be the ones who look down upon others, and the men who look down upon a woman who's been divorced, or think that you should be, like you said, more agreeable.
I think women just need to speak up. If it's not working, it's okay. Yeah, move out with your children, because children are not a reason to stay. Move out if you need to.
Yeah.
Start afresh, as difficult as it may be. And starting afresh is not even just about relationships, even business. If a business is not working, close it. You can't be plowing money in a business that's every day just eating your money and it's not working.
Yeah.
Close the business and start something else. I mean, it might be a generational business, your biggest dream, but if it's not working,
do something else.
Do something else. So let people not be scared of starting afresh, whether in marriage or business. And just be at a space knowing people will always talk.
So you yourself have to be okay with the fact that people
will always talk, and there's nothing you can do to make them stop talking. So don't be angry. They are human. Personally, I embrace it so much. Like when people go home, family gathering, those ones, people introduce themselves. Oh, I am Zippy and I am married here. I am what? In fact, in my language, they say, amakolo. Nimeshika udongo.
I have some grounding here.
Yeah.
Some foundation.
Me, I say, my name is Zippy. Nilijaribu kushika udongo ikakataa.
Hala.
So, kama kuna mtu kwenu pia mwenye alishindwa, unaweza to hook up.
You say it?
I say it. So they stop whispering. Immediately, everybody laughs and done.
What really struck me about Zippy is her confidence. I mean, this is a woman who grew up with a fear of growing old alone. That was her first real fear. But how she embraced it, for me, as a person who loves love, and we both agreed that we really do love, I don't know how she was able to come out of a divorce that was, one, an abusive relationship, both physically and emotionally, and still find it in herself to meet another man, get into another relationship, live with this man, bring up another child. But the best part about it is that the man fell in love with her daughter and her daughter fell in love with him. And that kind of helped how the relationship went. She put it so beautifully when she said that it's about entering a phase of life. Right now, freedom is where you need to be after you leave such relationships. You need to be okay with the decisions you made. You need to be okay with the fact that there was good times, and you need to accept that you can't hate yourself when things don't work out. I think for me, that was so honest. And the fact that she was willing to still give herself today, if you ask Dr. Zippy Okoth, she still wants to be in a relationship. She still believes there is room for relationship. So whenever you get into a relationship, I remember her telling me is that, please remember, you have to be okay with the fact that it could end. And if it doesn't, because that's not your prayer, grieve the relationship. And that made me think really deep. I thought to myself of the couple of friendships that I have had and that I lost that I had to grieve. And I know you're wondering, okay, which relationships? I have had friends who've been in my life through, maybe we started working together, then we became friends. And then all of a sudden something changes and what used to be your norm of being friends just ends. How do you get over that part without being bitter, without resentment? Grieve the process. Allow yourself to grieve. And I thought to myself, we all talk about grieving when someone dies, but what about when somebody leaves your life? How do we grieve that process? And she said, she went through therapy. She allowed herself to go through the sadness, the fear of loving again. But the healing, it took time, and it takes time, and it comes in waves. So don't be afraid when you have a friendship that you've lost, whether it is a love relationship or it is just a good friendship that you've had for a long time. Grieve it if it ends, so that you also get to learn that there was something you valued in that relationship and now it's gone. Go for therapy if you have to. Learn your triggers so that whenever something creeps up, you're able to get out of that place. So key takeaways, resilience. Zippy is one of the most resilient people I have ever come across. And even after all that she has joy, and she'll talk about her divorce, like, okay, it happened to me, but I'm still here. I still have 2 beautiful children and I'm moving on, And if you're going through a difficult time, her story is definitely a beacon of hope. So please catch up with it if you haven't. Another episode that really blew my mind was episode 11, Love Over Dream Weddings. Sounds like an unbelievable thing, because today everybody is so focused on how we will have the biggest, most elaborate, most expensive wedding, and we are going to have A, B, C, D. People have to know I'm getting married. Speaking as a woman who hasn't been married, and people have been waiting for my marriage, and it's supposed to be like, if Kalekye is getting married, it should be, let me tell you guys, it'll likely be the most simple but elegant wedding, and there will be few people. If you're not on the list, you're just not on the list. Because I know people get excited about people they love, know, or have known for a long time and have waited for a long time, but I don't know. And this particular episode really made me think that if a Gen Z, and Gen Zs have been known to be very afraid of getting married. Lately, I've seen this trend that Gen Zs, they'd rather not hear the word marriage being brought up to them. I don't know what the millennials before them did that has made them think that they should not get married, but it's a thing. So this particular episode was about Becky Shege, who is a Gen Z who got married pretty early in her life in 2023. And the episode was so sensitive to me because it was actually the first episode we ever tried to record for Conversations with Kalekye when we started the podcast. And guess what? I sat with Becky. We recorded 2 hours long of a very deep conversation. And then, this was before I met Semabox, we lost all the audio. Everything gone. So we had no podcast. And so for her to agree to come back and sit with us 2 years on, a year on. Yeah, it was a year on. I think that was really something. And her story was worth sharing. So her unconventional marriage, which saw her choose to put everything into one day and convince her parents that she can have her traditional wedding and negotiations, traditional wedding, plus the actual ceremony in one day, and everyone goes home, was amazing. This girl, something else. Just listen to a bit of her.
During our PMCC of premarital classes, one of the pastors said, we can officiate your wedding during the ratio. See, it's a wedding. It's a traditional wedding.
Very open-minded pastor.
Yes. And we're like, the same audience for ratio is the same people of the wedding. Tufanye tu kitu mara moja, please.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
You decided to do it all in one day?
Yes.
Forgo all the honey of the day I don't know, because it's not the same process.
Exactly. But we were like, the audience for Rorashe is the same people who are going to come for our wedding. Then let's just combine, because we just need like 30 minutes or 15 at most, by the way, for officiating. We say our vows, we sign our certificate, and it's done. And we are good. And then let's do this.
So it was more important to you at this stage for you to be officially married than it was for the pomp and flair of my wedding had, bridal shower did.
Yes. And let me tell you, I didn't have all these glamorous things girls have. Because number one, my aim and our goal, as we discussed, was we need to change the narrative of our generation. My parents didn't get married the official way. His parents did, but they separated at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was really, really determined to change the story of my generation, because mom got just come we stay, and she got pregnant. And now we are three of us.
And that life went on.
But because they took me to church, and I now know that you need to get babies in a marriage, you get married the correct way. I really was determined to get that done.
Okay.
So I was ready to forgo everything that could not work at that time for me to just do the right thing by God.
Yeah. Truly a Gen Z after my own heart. In this day and age where we have to think about the amount of money we are making, there is no money. You know which country we're living in. If you don't know, check out Kenya. Just Google, see the problems we are going through. I don't want to say too much lest they come for me, but I'm just saying it's tough. It's hard. But she combined all those things just to ensure that she had this wonderful, simple wedding. Getting married to a guy that she met and in 2 days decided this is the guy. And he knew what he wanted. And they're young. For me, that's impressive. Some may say wild because the marriage might not last, but they're still here. It's 2025. They got married in 2022. And hey, my takeouts from her, honesty and communication. And for me, those are two of the most important things in my life. I always say you'd rather tell me the truth than try and cook up a story and come and lie to me. First of all, the Lord has gifted me with the gift of discernment. I can tell when you're lying to me. And it will be so painful because I'm like, if we're meant to do something together, the best thing you can do is be honest. And the beauty about the way Becky and her husband related, even as they were getting to know each other, they dealt with the hard questions on the jump. Like, the guy broke down and said, listen, this is the amount of debt I have. Imagine someone telling you that in the first week. If you haven't watched this episode, you need to. The first week, this is the debt I have. This is the money I have. But me, I'm very sure it's you I want. And if you agree, we can build and grow together. And because they're young, that makes all the sense in the world, right? Prioritizing your values. When's the last time you got into a relationship and really knew what you wanted? Choosing what you want for you and being honest with that person about what you want makes your love and commitment way, way better. And then not being pushed by societal expectations, because of course the expectations is we're going to have like 10 different events before we get to the actual wedding. And now if you leave that to my parents, that is exactly what will happen. They don't know. I have a trick up my sleeve for myself. My trick up the sleeve is when indeed I do get married, and I will, I'll be telling them, so you've waited this long, so we're going to waste time with 10 events. No. Watch this episode. This is what we are doing. And then partnership and collaboration. I think their partnership and collaboration, especially as regards to my parents had a failed marriage. My parents, the other guy said, my parents, they did come, we stay. So I don't want this for us. So we are breaking this generational cycle by saying that we are going to get married the right way with what we have, what we can afford. Be honest about it and take on that challenge. A beautiful episode that really, in this day and age, we all need to take up. Another episode that really could leave you crying, thriving in barrenness. That was episode 8. When I got word from Jane Gishohi, the lady that I sat with, that she wrote a book and it's called God, Why Can't I Have a Baby? I was like, who says such things? Nobody really talks about that. Nobody questions God about something that is a gift that he could either give you or not give you. The same way, imagine me, I write a book called God, Why Can't I Get a Husband? Hey, the audacity for me. We need to hold back. But she did write this book, but she wrote it from a place of understanding and after God had given her blessing. So let me just take you a little bit back. Jane shared about her infertility, how she grew up, what she knew marriage to be. And, she comes from my generation, Gen X, and we were taught that this is what you're going to do. Go to school. Find a man to love you, get married, build a home, have children, and then now you're a person. I feel like that's just how our generation and our parents who are boomers kind of treated us. And so when Jane goes and she's getting married and she's met the love of her life and he is a pastor and she's a pastor's wife, and then they're praying people, believing people, and the babies are not coming. And yet she has to go and pray over people who are having children. Do you imagine how she felt? Listen. Now he says that it's okay, I don't want children that bad, but what are you feeling at that point?
I'm feeling really bad. I'm feeling guilty.
Okay.
Because I'm feeling that if he'd married somebody else, he'd have those children. So I'm feeling bad for him. It's like I have messed up, and yet it's not my fault. I know that here.
Right.
But yes, in my heart, I just feel like I've messed up. I should do better. I should be better. I shouldn't have these problems. And then I'm also frustrated with God.
Tell me about that.
Because I'm thinking, God, I got saved when I was 11, led a life of serving God. I loved God so much, So I'm like, God, I've lived my life for you. And when I was 16, I told my mom I'd want to get married to a pastor and just be a pastor's wife and serve God.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, Lord, I have done everything. I have done everything right, and because I've done everything right, you should be blessing me. Things should be getting better, but things are not. I got married knowing I have a problem, but I also had a lot of faith that when we prayed, you would answer my prayer. Now it's like heaven is silent. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand the delay. It doesn't make sense. I remember at one point, I was seated on my bed. Nelson had slept, and I'm just sitting there and thinking, God, when you are putting me together, it's like, were you asleep? It's like,
where was your mind?
It's like, God, how can I be so messed up?
Yeah. Nobody really prepares you for the guilt you feel when your body doesn't want to do what is expected of you. I'll say it in quotes. When your body isn't cooperating, who do you cry to? When you have people in your congregation as a pastor's wife, even refusing for you to pray for them, because how are you praying for them about their infertility when you're infertile? But she wrote about it and she came here and she shared about it because people can be very insensitive. My key takeaways from that particular episode: overcoming societal pressures. You really have to be very clear on who you are. Break free from these expectations, because when the expectations are being created by society, they didn't all investigate how our bodies will function. Nobody knew that her body will one day not function. She found out as they are going for the premarital classes, they were advised, go and, see a doctor. But her husband also stood with her, which I think is so good. They had great communication. So that's another point there. The conversations you have before you get into marriage, the hard conversations that nobody ever wants because we're in love, there's butterflies. Me, I'm going to have hard conversations. And I think it's important that we all take time to have the hard conversation. And I say this because had her husband chosen to walk away, the right time would have been before they got married, and which is what they did. They had the conversation. And he said, whether or not you have a child, I am going to be with you because it is you that I love. And that period, I'd rather you leave me before I say I do than in the middle of, we'll see how it goes, then you leave me. Open, honest communication. And then another takeaway is embracing faith over fear. And I know this is a hard one, especially if you're not a believer. But even when you're a believer, some of the things that the enemy throws at us are exactly what you're facing is the one thing he'll bring up the biggest fear. So how do you trust God's plan when you have been trying and you're not seeing efforts? You've gone for IVF, you've paid all this money, nothing is changing. So what do you do then? And yet you are a believer married to a pastor. You guys are the ones who are supposed to have direct access to God, but God hasn't answered you. How do you do that? I think what I loved about what Jane said is that go back and give God back his word. What did he say? You know, how did he say it in the Bible? Quote it back and keep quoting it back. Even when it gets to the point where you feel that you're so depressed, keep quoting back, keep holding the faith. And he who promised that he will do these good things, he will do it in his time. Because now she's a testimony, and this book is really something else. If you haven't read it, please go and look for it. God, why can't I have a baby? And then the power of gratitude, that she was grateful with even the little she had. To imagine that when she adopted her baby is when she got pregnant soon after. Like you've just gotten a small little baby, you're saying, okay, we're happy now, we've adopted. Then boom, yeah, I'm pregnant. So she was now bringing up children back to back. She got 3 of her own children after that. God is amazing. Yani, this is one of those episodes full of hope, resilience. Anyone who's facing infertility challenges in your life, please do check it out. Her story is definitely one that shows that God of the 11th hour will surely show up for you. It's amazing. Another episode that I enjoyed doing, and it was one of those that is the most reaffirming, was an episode on trauma bonding. That was episode 12. Now, this particular episode, what I loved about it most is that this was a fan from Zimbabwe who wrote us and said, look, guys, I love your podcast and I would love to be a part of it. By the way, if you would love to be part of the podcast, all you have to do is email us, conversationswithkalekye@gmail.com. Share a bit of your story. Tell us about yourself. We'll likely invite you to share your story with us. And that's what she did. And we, through Semabox, got to stream with her being in New York, and we did an amazing episode. And what she talked about, though, was her harrowing journey of discovering that she's HIV positive at 26 years old. And that is at a time when HIV was just landed. You know, like how you felt when COVID hit and everyone was scared, the whole planet was scared. That's how HIV was at the time. And so hearing her share her stories of being HIV positive in the late 80s was something else. And her response to it was, hey, this thing is too big. I can't deal with it. And so I'm off. And the boyfriend that she was dating didn't even help her process what she was going through. Just listen to this. So you didn't tell your parents?
I told nobody. I told my sister who was 21. She was 4 years younger than me. I was 26, turning 26, and she was turning 21. And I just went to her work. This poor thing, she came downstairs to see her sister, you know, in these official corporate. And I just dumped my life on her. I'm like, here's my checkbook. There used to be checkbooks then.
Yes.
Here's, I have this account, I have that account. Oh, and by the way, I have HIV. Yeah.
And then you leave. And that's how you guys left.
And I leave. I did a mic drop and I exited stage left.
And wait, hang on. So your sister, did you make her do like a blood promise not to tell your parents? What did you do?
No, I think we weren't even there, right? We weren't even at the point of blood promise, or
Just shock.
it was just shock. And then we were running away with my ex-husband. So, we were in this adrenaline infused,
Yes.
the world is our oyster, we're going to do it. We
Yes.
literally border jumped to go to Mozambique. We didn't go through the border. We went up the mountain and across.
Okay. So on top of everything, you've border jumped because your dad is an official. And so you don't want anybody to have any clue where you've gone. You've dumped on your younger sister. And then you go and you guys are living like you don't care. Every day is the last day of your life.
Every
so YOLO.
day is that we're YOLO. And then my ex-husband says to me, "Oh, we're on a beach, coconut drink with vodka in it or something.
Yeah.
High as kites, right?" And he says, "Would you still marry me?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sure, maybe," like simple.
Yeah.
And for him, that was his proposal. I wasn't told, though. I didn't get the memo.
My key takeaways: trauma bonding and denial is one of the biggest things that is really taking away people from thinking straight. And the thing is, yes, it happened in the 80s, but I still know so many people who have trauma bonded right now. A certain thing happens in your life and you're unable to face the facts. So what do? If you're dating or if you're looking to date, you go and you find somebody who loves you, who will not ask you the hard questions because they don't know you enough to ask you those questions, and you live with it. So for Wadzanai, she was in the initial stages of a relationship, discovers that she's HIV positive, and she and her ex-husband decide to say YOLO, and they live this trauma bonding relationship to the point where they ran away from home, by the way. They ran away from home because they're afraid of telling their parents, and then live this life saying they're okay. And she tried. She did well. She tried very hard to keep her health there. But eventually, it became horrible being with a man who really didn't stay with you for any other reason, that he figured that your YOLO life is what he wants. So living with that stigma for Wadzanai, she termed it as very intense, especially at the time in Zimbabwe. And so there was secrecy, there was fear, there was lack of support. And by the way, if you didn't know, right now, the HIV prevalence, especially in Kenya, has gone back up, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody even remembers that HIV is a virus that kills. HIV positive people without the right medication, and especially if there's stigma and hiding behind it, you could die. And it's happening. It's back. There's actually a report out that came out last year that supports the fact that the virus is very much back out. And with the way a lot of our young people are living their lives today, that is something that is really mortifying. And I'd advise you, go and watch this episode, learn a little bit about exactly how Wadzanai managed to live her life. But what almost killed her was not even the HIV, was the fact that this particular man that she trauma bonded with, who became her husband, is now ex-husband, almost killed her. Beat her so bad that those wounds, now healing became difficult, and she ended up becoming HIV positive again. She was living with HIV as a HIV negative, but now she became positive, and that's what almost killed her. But she's a very strong woman. I think finding strength and resilience despite those kind of huge obstacles, the diagnosis, living in a domestic violent home, a near-death experience, Wadzanai surely emerged as a very strong, resilient woman. And I admire the fact that she is able to stand up and talk about it. She brings out advocacy and awareness on HIV and AIDS and encourages open conversations about it, challenging that stigma that she took so many years to be able to even tell her parents that she had been living with HIV. To me, today she says she really emphasizes the fact that if you really want care and help, you really need to speak up. So overall, for me, that was a very powerful episode. And I love that we were able to stream it. If you haven't watched it, please do, because you will find so much human spirit, so much stability of mind over matter, and thinking, look, I have to love myself and I have to take care of myself no matter what happens. But more than that, I think it's really a sign of all these episodes, all the episodes. I look back and say, what's the influence that comes from how you were brought up? How does the way you were raised influence how you speak or choose partners? How do you relate with others? And I think that's a very big issue that many people don't address. So when I look at all those issues, and I've always been very strong about, I meet someone, I want to ask you questions about where you come from, your family. And when I was a kid, I remember my mom asking those many questions. You have a new friend in the neighborhood? Where are they from? Who are their parents? What do they do? And where is their shags? And where is their home? And I used to think that was just like, oh my God, get over yourself. She's just my friend. We just like to play. But right now I realize that the sum total of who you are has heavily been influenced by how you were brought up, what you saw, what you went through, and you form your either guarded or you are recluse based on how you interpreted what happened when you found out what love means from the first people who show you love, who are your parents. And so that brings me to what we want to do in season 2. We want to talk about parental trauma and relationships. And I know it's heavy. Parental trauma and relationships is heavy. I am afraid because at some point I'm probably going to have to sit down and have the conversation about my traumas, because I do have traumas. And I heavily think that they are a big reason as to what's affected how I have responded in dating situationships. But when the Lord says that is the show you're going to do, you're going to do it. So if you've ever sat back and looked at your own life and seen that there's some parental trauma, or you feel it. I mean, there's some people who've gone through some experiences. They felt abandoned by their parents. They felt neglected, abused, or they felt that the environment they grew up in was just one that made it difficult to exist. Then I want to hear from you. We would love to have you on the podcast sharing about your experience. And we're hoping that we will be able to give you the help that you need. It's not just about sharing the stories, but this podcast is about giving love a voice and also finding some help, some place of rest and resolution to what you may be going through, a step in the right direction, I'll call it. So if you would be so strong as to want to have that conversation, and it's one that you need to think about, pray about, please email us, conversationswithkalekye@gmail.com. Tell us about the kind of parental trauma you feel that you went through, or you've identified that there's something that happened that makes you behave or think like that, or you're thinking, I keep choosing similar relationships. I keep going in the same loop. Could it be that I'm stuck because of some past parental trauma? How do I identify it? And we'll do that with you. So that is our new theme for season 2, parental trauma and dating relationships, how they affect each other. So I can't wait to hear from you. I can't wait for the amazing conversations we're going to have here. And I look forward to you watching them on YouTube, listening on Spotify and AfriPods. Please make sure that you join us. Please make sure that you're part of the conversation and keep watching. Go back and watch the past episodes. I just named like 3 or 4 of them, but there are several episodes that have amazing stories. And to all the people who've been here before, thank you so much. You're welcome to come again if this particular new theme touches you. It would be lovely to have you here again. My name is Kalekye Mumo, and this is Conversations with Kalekye, where love finds a voice. Can't wait for our new season to kick off.
Thank you.